Hi. So I've been gone from YouTube for a little while now, primarily because I've been dealing with some grief with my family, so I'm filming this video a little bit differently today than I usually do. I filmed it in a vlog style, so I hope you enjoy this voiceover. I haven't really been feeling up to sitting down in front of a camera. I tried to get myself to do it a few times and just wasn't ready to put on a face yet. So in the meantime, let's discuss flower magic. I will also be performing a solar ritual in this video as well. When we think of flower magic, many don't realize how deep and spiritual and philosophical working with a simple flower can be. But before we dive into these philosophical considerations, I would like to recommend that you go pick your flowers yourself. Sure, store-bought is also fine, but there is usually better quality control when you are able to pick your flowers from a local farm. Also, as a side note, I recommend going on a day where it's not pouring down rain. There was not supposed to be any rain today, but unfortunately we got caught in a rainstorm. So we just made fun of it. We had umbrellas and everything was okay. So try to pick your flowers yourself, either out in the wild or at a local farm. Not only are you supporting your local farms by doing this, but you can also take a moment to connect with the plant itself before taking a cutting from it. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in this video. Today, I road trip to Morris Farm for their Sunflower Festival. I highly recommend this place if you live in Washington State. Do some research and see if there are some farms around you that will let you pick your own flowers. This place was really cute and really unique. They had lots of farm animals and tons of activities for kids, and we accidentally almost adopted a puppy because they had puppies everywhere, and I'm so glad we didn't give in. Also, say hello to Mount Rainier. As a born and raised Washingtonian, I have traveled all over the world, and nothing compares to the beauty of the Pacific Northwest. I'm a little bit biased, but I do think it's very beautiful here. So let's talk about flower magic. Many indigenous practices will use flowers as offerings to their gods, but that is not necessarily what I will be talking about in this video, as that is not my place. Let's start with Henry Cornelius Agrippa, one of the most influential occult figures to come out of the 1500s. According to Agrippa, in the 3 books of occult philosophy, particularly in Book 1 on natural magic, different parts of a plant are attributed to different planetary influences. So for example, roots are ruled by Saturn, bark and seed are associated to Mercury, flowers are governed by Venus, fruit is connected to Jupiter, although I have used fruit for Venus as well. Wood corresponds to Mars, and the leaves come under the influence of the moon. Now, Agrippa's system fully endorses this hermetic principle of as above, so below. The structure and the parts of plants mirror this cosmic order and are imbued with occult virtues of the planets. But things can also have multiple virtues. A sunflower specifically is often attributed to the sun, but flowers in general are attributed to Venus. So how can we kind of reconcile this? Well, the sunflower can be solar because of its properties, but its blossom as the flowering part falls under Venus's rulership because Venus rules flowers generically. Things can carry primary and secondary virtues depending on their form, their function, their appearance, and so on. And magic for Agrippa is really about connecting the lower to the higher. So any sort of rituals or talismans, incantations, prayers, and so on, these things bridge these worlds and really pull down some sort of spiritual power into the material realm. But let's talk about the sun a little bit more, which I find ironic considering there was no sun out today as it was pouring down rain. But let's talk about the sun because we will be doing a solar ritual. So the correspondences of the sun are the color gold, yellow, orange. It has this element of nobility, vitality. It is radiant. It is the life giver. The sun is also associated with the lion, the sunflower, with health, authority, and illumination. Today, we are performing a solar ritual that is perfect for this season as we descend into fall and into darkness. We lose sunlight in the fall and winter, so performing a solar ritual to produce something that you can use in the upcoming season is very pragmatic. We will be making a sunflower essence and performing a solar ritual with it. But before we do that, let's discuss some archetypal and symbolic interpretations of flowers and plants that go beyond Agrippa's teachings. Let's talk about the plant as a cosmic map. This is sort of inspired from the Neoplatonic Great Chain of Being, and these associations are going to differ from what Agrippa says in his 3 books of occult philosophy, because there are many ways to interpret the life cycle of a plant. So the seed is the potential. It can be said to have this Saturnian mystery to it. The seed is the prima materia, the unmanifest. It holds infinite potential in this tiny, dark point. It can represent new beginnings, patience, and gestation. It is the dark womb of time. Now, the root can be tied to the subconscious. It has this element of lunar or Saturnian depths, so these roots descend into the darkness. They represent the ancestral, the unconscious, the foundation of being. So we have elements of stability, grounding, ancestry, the collective unconscious. Root work in folk magic really draws on themes of working with your ancestors, protection, stability, banishing, grounding. These are all themes that can be used when considering the root of a plant. The stem and leaves are the bridge. The stem is this world access connecting below to above. Leaves, of course, as we know, convert sunlight to life through photosynthesis. There is this element of breathing, exchanging, communicating. So stems and leaves can be used for healing, movement, adaptability, or communication. And the flower seems to always be attributed to Venusian or solar themes. No matter what system you are looking at, flowers really are the soul of the plant. It is beauty, there is fragrance. So flowers can be used in attraction rituals, love rituals, beauty, heavy themes of solar energy and Venusian energy, anything that those 2 planets rule over. Flowers in general are governed by Venus, according to Agrippa, but every flower has slightly different characteristics. So the sunflower, yes, we will be using in our solar ritual today, but consider the other properties that that flower might possess. Now we get to fruit. This is the Jupiterian fulfillment. So fruit is the manifestation of all the hard work. It's the accumulation. It's the goal made manifest of flesh. It is the nourishment born of this hard labor. So there's this element of abundance. Now, when we finally get to the seed within the fruit, this is the eternal return. So we're kind of moving from this Jupiterian energy with the fruit back to this Saturnian influence where every ending births a new beginning. This is the cycle. The cycle is eternal. Death and life feed into one another. So Saturn, again, is sort of representing cyclical time here. We've got reincarnation themes, transformation, fate, time-based magic, and things of that nature. So we really can look at the plant as an entire cosmic map. We can see the roots as the underworld, the chthonic realms, the stems and leaves as this earthly, lunar, mercurial mediation, the flowers and fruits as this solar and Venusian glory with some Jupiterian abundance, and then the seeds are this return to hidden, this Saturnian mystery. Let's talk about how to harvest the flowers that you will be using for a flower essence, if you so choose to make one yourself. I want to preface this with, it's not just about harvesting a plant for the flower essence. You're not just clipping the flower. You are entering a reciprocal living relationship with the spirit of this plant. So the moment of harvest is actually important. For this solar ritual, this cutting was done on a Sunday, which is ruled by the sun, and it was also performed during the hour of the sun. We'll talk about planetary hours a little bit later when we get to actually making the essence. So you might want to consider the day and the time that you are harvesting something if you're working with moon phases or a different planet. With flower essences, some people do get really particular about the process and make sure that it's very sterile. I don't necessarily take that approach. Some people might not even choose to touch the flower with their hands, and instead they might want to use tweezers or some other tool or medium to harvest the flower. Some people believe that even if you touch the petals, that your essence, your energy is now being imbued and mixed with the flower's essence and energy. So if I were selling this as a product to someone, it would probably be harvested in a lot more of a sterile and careful way. But because I am creating this flower essence for myself, I don't really mind if my own essence or energy gets a little mixed into it. So I am just going to harvest this plant with my hands. Now, when you approach the plant, you are seeing it as this living being. You are seeing it as having this spirit, and you might take a moment to connect with it either through meditation, or you can say something to the effect of, "Spirit of sunflower, I honor you and I ask to work with your energy in creating a solar flower essence. May I take from you for this purpose." And then pause for a moment. wait a moment and let your intuition tell you if the plant consents or not. And I encourage you to try this with different plants, because there will be times where you receive this energy that feels like a yes or that feels like a no. And if it is a no, respect that no and move on. If the plant says yes intuitively, you may take your cutting and then leave something as a thanks. So you can add a couple drops of water to the soil, you can add some honey or something nourishing for the soil, a little bit of fertilizer. Since this is someone else's farm, I'm not going to be doing that because that is not appropriate for me to do to someone else's plants. You can offer other things such as a song, a prayer, a chant, something that adds to the reciprocity of this relationship between you and the plant spirit. So during the harvest, again, you might use clean, consecrated scissors for this specific purpose. I definitely wasn't doing that here because I'm doing this a little bit more informal, as I am not selling this and I am not gifting it to anybody else. And after the cut, you might say something like, "With thanks I take, may your spirit remain, your virtue increase." Hi, hello. Please excuse the lack of cute aesthetics in the background. So now comes the fun part of actually putting everything together for our solar ritual to create this solar flower essence. So this information can be found in the 3 books of occult philosophy, again by Agrippa. I'm just going to show you the paper, but I am going to be using the planetary kamea, aka the planetary magic square of the sun, as well as the seal of the sun. So let me show you here. We have the planetary grids or kameas or magic squares up at the top here. Think of this like the numerological key to unlocking solar energy. And then we have the seal for the sun down here. And then we also have sigils for the intelligence and spirit of the sun, which you can use if you so choose. Now, purist ceremonial magicians, look away. You are not going to enjoy the rest of my video because this is very chaos magic inspired, and I do not follow rule books. Again, screenshot this if you need to. This is the information that I will be using. So as you can see, I've already started painting the planetary kamea, planetary magic square, in gold onto a poster board. And I'm going to put the seal on top of that grid. And then I'm going to place the bowl where the flowers are floating in spring water or distilled water onto the seal. And so we need to set up our solar altar, right? So I've got a couple different correspondences here. I'm gonna end up creating an altar outside, and I would recommend incorporating some planetary timing in here as well. So ideally, for a solar ritual, you would really want to do this during the summer solstice, or when the sun is in Leo. According to electional astrology, working with the sun when it is in Leo is a very favorable placement. Now, it is not the summer solstice, the sun is not in Leo, but that doesn't mean that we can't still do a solar ritual. So I'm going to be, again, performing this on a Sunday during the hour of the sun. So if you're not familiar with planetary hours, there are tons of apps out there. There's a website called planetaryhours.net. There's so many different places where you can figure out, just by using your zip code and a basic calculator, when those hours are, because it does depend on your time zone. And if you want more information on planetary hours, I went over all of that in my Planetary Magic series, which I'll link that in the description box if you want more of a how-to for this type of stuff. Now, as for the altar itself, I want to bring in some additional correspondences, not just using the seal and the grid, but I'm going to be using a gold altar cloth, of course. I'm also going to be using a gold candle holder. And then I would recommend, if you want to burn some incense, especially for a solar ritual, try to get frankincense. That would be ideal. Some people have different correspondences for solar rituals, and that's fine, but frankincense for me has always been the one. And then anything else, any sort of imagery, any sort of crystals, other correspondences that relate to the sun. So let's paint. Go set up our altar, and then we will begin making the essence. For the flower essence, I recommend using spring water or distilled water if you can. And you're gonna need something for preservation as well, just so it can last a little bit longer. Some people like to use brandy for this. I like to use organic apple cider vinegar. It is completely up to you what you choose to use for preservation, but you'll definitely want at least something in there for the lifespan of your flower essence. So I usually do half parts water, half part apple cider vinegar. You can adjust that and do mostly water and then just a smaller portion of apple cider vinegar. It really depends if you're planning on making large batches. Obviously, the mother batch is going to need a lot more preservation agents in it versus something you plan to use within the next week or so. But I plan to use this for the next couple months, so I'm going to be doing half water, half apple cider vinegar. Now here in this video, I only poured in the water, and that is primarily because I wasn't sure my bowl would be big enough, but I do add the apple cider vinegar towards the the end. So here I'm just adding the flowers to the water. And as you can see, I'm picking off the petals from one of the flower heads. Normally I would just submerge both flower heads into the water and apple cider mixture. But again, because my bowl is so small, this is the largest bowl that I could find. I ended up picking the petals off of one flower head and then submerging the second flower head into the water. You can do it however you like. It really doesn't matter. I also choose to place my flower heads down. You can place them up or down, but I like the face of the flower making actual contact with the water. So that is why I place the flowers face down. So let's talk a little bit more about how long this essence can last, and then also what are its uses? What are we actually doing this for? So if we're talking about how long it can last, I am creating a mother essence in this video. So that is 50% water, 50% some sort of preservative like brandy or apple cider vinegar. If you add in 50-50, that will last 5+ years. However, you can use the mother essence to make smaller stock bottles or even smaller dosage bottles. So a stock bottle would be something like 25% apple cider vinegar and 75% water, and then maybe just 4 drops of your original mother essence. Now this has less vinegar in it, so it'll last probably about 3 to 5 years instead of 5+ years. If you wanted to make a small dosage bottle, just a little dropper, you could fill it with mostly water and then just a few drops from your mother essence. This really only lasts 1 to 2 weeks though in the refrigerator. And just keep in mind, I am not ingesting this. Flower essences, yes, you can ingest them when they are made appropriately, but I wasn't being sterile in this process because I don't plan to ingest it. So if you do plan on ingesting, I highly recommend looking into more sterile ways to create a flower essence. This I'm going to be using topically. I'm going to be using it as a cleaning agent to refresh the energies in my space through the fall and winter, and really just anytime I want to bring in some solar energy, because as we descend into the darker half of the year, there will be times where I want to bring in more solar energy. And at some point you will see me tracing the seal of the sun over the top of this bowl. We'll talk about energy work a little bit later, some options for who you can call upon and how you can bring in even more solar energy while you're letting this infuse. But let's talk about what the sun rules over and what this flower essence can be used for. So the sun really rules over vitality, illumination, glory. It is this life-giving power. It can boost our confidence, our joy, our courage. I love using solar energy for healing purposes. I love using it for success, particularly career success, or if you wanted to use it in some sort of working for leadership or fame or authority. You can use solar energy if you're looking to seek clarity for your goals and attracting favorable attention, especially because as we're using flowers, which according to Agrippa are ruled by Venus, Venus really attracts. And not just for things that pertain to love. Venus can really attract many different things into our life. So though this is primarily a solar ritual, we do have that Venusian component underlying in this working as well. So you could certainly use this to attract favorable attention. You could use this solar essence for self-esteem, maybe some optimism, some resilience. I know for myself and many others, seasonal affective disorder is something that runs rampant, especially in the Pacific Northwest. We barely get any sun in the fall and winter, and it can be pretty desolate. I'm not saying that this solar flower essence is a complete treatment for seasonal affective disorder. Of course, we need to be monitoring our vitamin D levels and making sure we're getting out of the house, we're being physically active, we're being social, all of those things. But if you wanted a more metaphysical, spiritual component to bring into your routine that brings in solar energy to help with seasonal affective disorder, that is something that I personally use it for in the fall and winter. But you can use this again as a cleaning agent, so you can use it as a door wash, a floor wash, wiping down the counters in your room to bring in this solar energy and refresh the energy in your space. Again, if you want to ingest the flower essence, I suggest you go look up more sterile ways of creating the flower essence, but some people do choose to ingest it as part of a spiritual solar alignment ritual in the fall and winter. You could also use this essence in a ritual bath, adding 7 drops or maybe a particular number that corresponds to the intention of your ritual bath of this solar flower essence. You can anoint your ritual tools, you can anoint your candles, you can create a room or altar spray from this mother essence that you've created, or you can use it in meditative or theurgic uses. So let's say you're going to take a few drops and apply it to your skin topically before meditation, path working, solar visualizations, and so on and so forth. So for this, you might want to face the east at sunrise, take your solar sunflower essence, apply a few drops topically to your skin, and say something akin to, "As the sun rises in the heavens, so may the light rise in my mind and spirit." So there really are many uses to using an essence like this. Okay, so it's finally time for ritual. This is not, I just want to point out, this is not beautiful. This is not a cinematic experience, okay? This is real magic, and sometimes real magic is not pretty. I could have made this more beautiful or more aesthetically pleasing or more Instagram friendly or whatever, but this is just real raw magic. So just want to point out, it's not the prettiest ritual, but it is effective. So let's go back to electional astrology. Perhaps you have looked at the sun and where it is currently positioned in the sky and really picked a favorable time to perform your ritual. Or maybe you are just performing this ritual on a Sunday during the hour of the sun. That alone, by the law of correspondence, is going to bring in solar energy. So it's really up to you how much more solar energy you want to bring into this ritual. If you are performing it on a Sunday during the hour of the sun, that's already going to be bringing in some solar energy. And then adding in things like frankincense, gold candles, crystals that correspond to the sun. We're working with the sunflower, which is associated with the sun. All of these correspondences are bringing in that solar energy before the ritual even begins. Now you can sit here and meditate with the bowl. You can also visualize the colors gold or yellow pouring down from the celestial realm down into the bowl. You can hold your hands over the flower essence. You can trace the seal of the sun over the top of it. Now I also have the planetary kamea underneath with the seal sitting on top. So I like to do a little bit of an invocation. I have my own personal style as to how I like to call upon solar energy. You can choose to call on the archangel of the sun, the planetary intelligence, and planetary spirit if you want to go a little bit more ceremonial. I do choose to work with the archangels of each planet. Not everyone is comfortable with that or interested in that. You could also sit here and while meditating, read an Orphic hymn to the sun. But let's say you're setting up your altar to face east. You are facing the rising sun, and you're doing this on a Sunday during the hour of the sun, and you're lighting your candle in incense, and you can say something similar to, I kindle the fire of the sun, source of light and life. May its rays descend upon this work and sanctify it. Then you can approach the sunflower essence that is being created and say something like, O radiant creature of soul, thou who turnest thy face to the light, I honor thy spirit and ask thy virtue. May I take of thy bloom for healing and blessing, that thy solar nature may shine through this essence. And again, this is completely customizable. I'm just giving you inspiration, but let's say you do want to trace the seal of the sun in the air above the bowl. You can say something like, O thou King of the heavens, fountain of light, infuse these waters with thy splendor, that they may bear thy blessing to soul and body. And you can finish it off with something like, as above, so below, as the sun shines in the heavens, so may its light dwell in this flower essence. After your ritual is complete, you're going to want to let this sunflower essence sit out under the sunlight for about 3 to 4 hours. After that point, you can come back and close out the rest of the ritual. So you're going to take the water and you are going to strain it. Again, I had to add my apple cider vinegar at the end because I thought my bowl wasn't going to be big enough, but you're going to take a moment to strain things out, but you also want to conclude the ritual. Now, if you do choose to call on the archangel or the planetary spirit, intelligence, and so on, any spirits you call on, at the end, you're going to want to close it out, right? You are going to want to thank them with gratitude, release them from the ritual space. You can say something like, depart now in peace, leaving thy blessing behind. Now, because I had to add in the apple cider vinegar towards the end, I did decide to do a little bit more energy work with it. I wanted to trace the seal of the sun over the top of it once more, but I wanted to talk about the apple cider vinegar really quick because there's something so beautiful about using apple cider vinegar. We almost have a little bit of a Jupiterian energy coming into this working as well, because as I mentioned previously in this video, fruit is associated with Jupiter. It is this bountiful harvest. The apple in the apple cider vinegar kind of correlates to the abundance and prosperity themes that we see in Jupiter. So really this working, although it is heavily solar focused, there are some underlying elements of Venusian and Jupiterian energy with attraction and abundance. It was just a really wonderful mixture of ingredients. I ended up putting some labels, on the top of my jars so I could remember, but just store it in a cool, dark place, and they last really a long time. I really hope that this inspired you. Let me know if this is something that you are going to try at home. This is the perfect harvest essence. Thank you always for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon.